Happy New Year is coming.
Yes, throw in Happy New Year.
Sindio?
Yes.
We just put it in there.
Kabisa.
Once and for all. Let's just get into it. Happy holidays.
Ding dong merrily on high.
Go on.
The bells are sweetly ringing.
The bells are ringing, for heaven's sake.
Huh?
It's in heaven, the bells are ringing.
But in heaven the bells are ringing.
Yes. Ding dong merrily on high.
Ding dong merrily on high.
The angels
Yes,
are
something.
singing.
See?
Gloria.
No.
Gloria.
Yeah. Yes, the whole.
In the highest.
You really have to extend that form.
Let's go all the way.
You really have to stretch it. It's not just
Okay. Wealth. How much wealth do you have?
Are you asking me?
How much do you want?
Oh, that's it. You see now.
It's the appropriate question.
Thank you, please.
Okay.
You have to appropriate your questions to the answeree.
Okay.
So that's the question that will be answered for you when you walk into a Standard Chartered Bank branch. And they'll ask, how much do you want? How much do you have? What are you ready to do to make sure that you can create wealth, manage your wealth, rather grow your wealth and manage your wealth? And so you say, okay, so what do I need to do? This is how much I have. And you're really confused and you say, okay, so what are we going to do going into the future? Standard Chartered, the folks at Priority Banking say, it doesn't matter. Come unto me. Thank you. All you who want to grow your wealth. And let's have a conversation about some of these things because we've done it before, guys. We've been around the block. We've bought the t-shirt and we've said, come, let's have a conversation. We will hold your hand. They are really, they're experts in this. And they say, we've done it for years. We've done it around the world and we can do it with you too. So you can learn the different ways and you can also start to practice them. And there are people who are not going to leave you in the deep, but they will make sure that you have all the tools that you need and help you to put your money in the right places. It's the folks at prioritybanking.ke@sc.com. Send them an email. Somebody will pick up the phone and call you. Somebody will say, come and let us have a meeting. Let us sort out these things together. Let's help you create, grow, and manage your wealth.
Actually, they do. Because this conversation, the one we had here with one Mr. Oma Orero.
Yes.
And he said one of his people get in touch. And
they did.
And they did. Yes. So what they're saying is actually true.
It is true.
They do.
There you go.
It's true. It's true. I told you my lady is buying me lunch today.
Can you bring your friend? You know, sometimes when they say, my friend is buying me lunch, then you show up and then they've come with somebody.
Yeah.
Bas.
Like, no, this is just my friend. She was passing by.
And I said,
I think she could benefit from this conversation and the lunch.
That's why I like you. We are going.
After all, it is Standard Chartered Bank. Pesa or tas. What is lunch?
Lunch too.
And her name is Judy Dothiam.
Kwisha wewe.
What is lunch? I will buy.
Only two.
Only two people. In fact, who else? What? Okay, now let's talk about milestones. There's a company that we all know, regularly, or especially close to the election period, we see polls. And then when you have some things happening in the country, some big conversations taking place, maybe our economy, are we feeling like our economy is doing well or not? We again see this name. Is the country heading in the right direction? That question is only asked by one company. And we ask ourselves, which direction?
Yeah, exactly.
You should first ask me, is the country heading?
Yeah,
Is there a country here?
Do we have a country here?
Oh dear.
Infotrak Research is a company that is known for this, but maybe they do a lot more. And they are marking 20 years this year since they were founded. And the founder of that company, who is also the CEO, Angela Ambitho, is in the studio. Angela, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary, which is also a birthday. We're very excited about
20 years?
Yeah.
20
years. It makes me a force.
Of asking the same question. If an election were to be held today,
Who would the preferred candidate be?
Yeah.
that's what we know. But then maybe you do other things.
We do a lot of things actually, because research is not, confined to polling. Polling is but public perception polls are just but a facet. Indeed, the space that we work in is market research, and that involves investigation, analyzing. So you gather data, you analyze data, and you come up with insights to answer to any problem. So everything we have in this studio, for instance, went through a process of what we do. So including whether the color of this desk should be as it is now, or the jacket that Ndu is wearing should be designed the way it's designed. So, big clothing and retail companies would do that. The microphone that we have. So research is omnipresent.
Right.
We use it, the church uses research. So believe it or not, the Catholic Church, and I think all mainstream large churches have huge divisions. If you go to the Vatican,
To research.
Exactly. To understand, to investigate, and
Is the Lord really coming back? What do you think?
Bro,
are we moving away or are we getting closer?
that's a different realm, Chief.
He said he's coming back. Is it like a thief?
Now you walked in the realm of faith.
Yeah.
So what
Just
research is
use it nicely.
What research would the
Because,
church conduct? Siti?
I think it's just understanding what people think about what it is that they do. The various things that churches do, they'd like to understand. Because if you have a congregation, you want to meet their needs. And research would now inform you about those things. So that when you tailor the substance of what it is that you offer, it meets the needs of your congregation.
Very good.
I mean, one of the challenges that mainstream churches, Catholic Church, which I belong to, is facing is, they're feeling disenfranchised, particularly when it comes to the younger population. So why are young people increasingly moving away from mainstream churches? And so to understand that, you can indeed pray, but you need to talk to the young people and find out what it is that they would perhaps be requiring to see in terms of their new generation, in terms of what religion and spirituality means to them.
Okay.
So that is, that is something
That's a lot that you do.
So it's a lot.
We'll discuss that shortly.
Yeah.
City will welcome you with the day's proverb. But before the proverb, where are we this week?
We are in the kingdom of Eswatini. These people like September. September 6th, they got independence. From who? Mother UK. Okay? 24th of September, same year, 1968, they joined the UN. And then life went on. And when life went on, they coined many proverbs, of which I will read one. A person who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it.
A person who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person doing it.
Yeah.
Well, for Infotrak marking 20 years, this one is right there. What's your interpretation of this proverb?
Oh, that rings true for me because 20 years ago, when I was just about to leave employment, and the research sector was mainly, owned and run by expatriates. So it's a very Wazungu kind of industry. And so when I said to various people, both in my family and all, that I'm leaving. I was 9 months pregnant. So people thought this must be pregnancy blues. She'll be back. Hormones. She'll be back. And I was very clear that I wasn't going to be back. I'd just done an MBA. At that time, Nairobi University was offering, it had just started the parallel program. So I went and did an MBA after studying history. I'm a student of history. And so many people said exactly what that proverb says. It cannot be done. But I was the one who was ready to do it. I'd been doing it for 9 years. And I think, sometimes you need to steer clear of naysayers and focus on your goals and get to where you want to go. Whether it's independence of a country, like happened with Eswatini, where there were people who wanted to get their hands dirty and get the country going, or you want to start a business. People will always tell you want to leave a salary. You want to leave, all the perks. Are you sure you can do what these other guys were doing? And yet you've been doing it anyway. So that is really what the proverb CT means to me. I don't know whether I have hit the nail on the head. So for me, yeah.
Well,
you've hit the head itself.
Proverbial nail or not, you have hit it.
So 9 months pregnant, I decide to leave formal employment.
Right.
Go into maternity and start your business.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yes. Many things happened.
Apart from the hormones,
2004.
what else was going on in your mind?
Well, I had worked for one of the, mainstream research agencies for 9 years. I started working there when I was an intern. So when I was in university, I would go there and just, do anything really to get to understand how the working environment, operates. And so when I finished university, I just went back and said, listen, I need a job. And it wasn't very different from now, although now unemployment is a lot higher. But I was very clear on one thing, that there's a skills mismatch between what we are taught in university and what what your employability will be, even if you are in very, specialized areas like accounting, etc. But for those of us who are in the Bachelor of Anything, as we were called, section, it was like, okay, you guys are going to be district officers, etc., etc. So I was very clear that, I needed to understand and start working in an environment, whichever environment. At that point, it was anything. But luckily, I got myself into research, thanks to connections that my mother had then. A colleague of hers knew someone who owned a research firm, and I went and worked there. Rose up the ranks. Again, not seeing the ceiling, always wanting to explore, to do more. And I think one of the things that I had been told by my parents then is that you always get to work before your boss and you leave after or when he's leaving. So I always tried to make myself available. And what that does is then you get a very good mentor, because then you're the person who is always available to tag along. So at a very young age, I think I was 26 or 27 when my boss then said, well, I think you're ready to run this organization. We're going to make you managing director. Many thought it was a joke. I was obviously thrown into the deep end. But, you learn as you go by. And if you believe, and I think everybody has that belief in yourself, you can do a lot of things. And so I did that. And in the 9th year, as would happen, I then became, and then, you're young, and so you're very ambitious. We all at that age, I don't know about you guys, but I always thought that I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30.
Of course.
So, I just knew that 30 was this golden year where I would be doing things that were massive. And so that was around the 30th mark for me. And I had been agitating and got some shares. So eventually I became a shareholder of that company. But I realized that in being a shareholder and putting a lot of effort and energy in growing the organization, there was still the glass ceiling. There were still things I couldn't quite do as I wanted to do them. The aha moment for me was when I wanted a salary increment. So, of course, I was cheaper labor because I was younger. Yeah. So I've given you an opportunity. So you're not earning commensurate to perhaps, what your expertise is, but also what your peers in the industry are earning because you're young. You've been given an opportunity. I didn't mind that. But when I could see what my abilities were accruing, but were not commensurate, I went and said, hey, we need to negotiate. I need better perks or more equity. And that's when it hit me that this is going to be a tough battle. So I have two choices. I can stay on and be very unhappy and perhaps be inefficient, or I can actually put into action everything I had, learned when I was at UON doing that MBA. And that's exactly what I did.
So this was what pushed you now to saying, let me go and...
That's exactly what it was. It gets to the point where you're sitting in management meetings or board meetings and you disagree with your boss over very minor things. And you realize, kampuni sio yangu. I mean, I have very small, I had 10%. He was still 90% shareholder. So, there was only so much I could do. But if I had the dreams of doing things in a different way, then it behooved on me, as people say, enda wanze yako. So that's exactly what I did.
Go start your own company.
And So as I celebrate 20 years, my son is actually 20 as well. I think I talked to you once when I was looking for where he should go to school. He's now in the US. So he turned 20 in May. And I left, that organization was called Stedman. Then I left Stedman in 2004, April. I gave birth in May. I started Infotrak in October.
What?
And in between that, I've never said this, but my marriage went through hell. So you're going through all these things, and the support that you would perhaps be expecting starts to crumble. So you have to, really invoke what is internal to ensure that you do not get, into a mental state that cannot be resolved. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope that doesn't sound like a sob story.
No.
It's a very
Because you guys look...
inspiring story.
You guys look...
No, we're listening.
We're following the story.
Right.
We're paying attention.
Right, yeah.
So then with all of this happening,
Yeah.
and obviously, like now, just like, as we started this off, especially when it then comes to politics in the country and things that are happening with elections, now has just become synonymous with some of the things that you put out. However, back then...
Right.
And you said, I'm going to start my own.
Yeah.
What did you imagine that you were going to do, and what impact did you think it was going to then have on the country or other countries that you were going to do this work in? What were you thinking that was necessary? Market research, looking at politics in the country, looking at business, looking at, goods, moving, trading. What did you think it is that you were going to do that was going to impact?
So when I started working, we were still in the, Moi regime. And during that time, there were a lot of controls. So it was very difficult for companies like ours to venture into the space of, political polling or public opinion research, because that environment did not allow for those freedoms, right? So... other than the fact that all these things were happening within the work environment and my, wanting to do more and more and being told you can't quite do that much more, we were also getting into the NARC era. And I looked at that environment and I was very excited. I said, wow, it's the coalition, the Rainbow Coalition. We were the most optimistic country. So that means I was optimistic, perhaps like everybody else here.
Yeah.
And so for me then, I said, hey, this must be the opportunity. At that point, we had already started discussing what was happening around the globe with regards to various elements of research. And so, I was already aware of, public opinion polling, etc., etc. And I thought this is a space that one can now venture into because there was so much freedom. There was so much excitement. So 2002, we have that election. 2003, if you look at data, a lot of people started enterprise then. Because the government was also providing an enabling environment for us. Government is not actually meant to provide jobs.
Nope.
It is only meant to provide us with that facilitating, enabling environment. And at that point, luckily, that enabling environment was there. And so because there were so many foreign investments coming in, businesses were expanding, etc. You look at all these companies we now celebrate, many of them really grew around that decade. And what did they need? They needed information.
Yes.
The government itself needed information to rejig, that which was hitherto, perceived to be a very dictatorial regime. And so there was a lot of opportunity, and I wanted to tap into that. So that was one of the reasons, and thank God it was at that time, because timing is very critical in entrepreneurship, that I decided to get into it. And so there was a lot of demand for research then. Perhaps a lot more than there is now for people who are starting today. Although the truth of the matter is, in tough situations and when environment is tough, that is when research is most critical. That is when you really need to understand what your target market or your target audience is going through, and what then would resonate with them. The mistake that most of us make is we look at research as an auxiliary service. Luckily, during that decade, it was actually mainstreamed. So performance appraisals became something that was a must. So every government agency had to do a performance appraisal. And that performance appraisal had to be done by an external agency. Today, I believe when we talk about cutting down and streamlining government expenditure, one of the things that I believe has happened is that the services that we provide, perhaps alongside other consultancy services, maybe even media, is perceived as auxiliary. It's perceived as a good thing to have. Whilst at that now is when you need to be communicating to people. You need to be understanding what people need to, want done, and how you can help them, grow in whatever realms they're in.
20 years in operation. This is what Angela Ambitho is telling us about. 20 years ago, October, she decided to start a new company. She founded Infotrak Research and Consulting Limited. 20 years down the road, what is this journey? What are the milestones and the achievements that this company has had? And what else do they do in this field of research? So, Angela, apart from this research, the political research on the side, what other forms of research do you conduct?
Right. So the public opinion polling that we're known for, believe it or not, constitutes about 2 to 3% of our revenue.
All that money is only 2%.
I don't know what that money is.
I think here is the tip of the iceberg story.
Okay.
But
Now let's talk about the iceberg. We figured that you told us about the tip. Now tell us about the iceberg.
So the core of research and what feeds us is, divided into two broad categories. The first one is market research. And so market research would, entail looking at products and services and usage of those products and services. You'd work with manufacturing, companies to find out, for instance, why people are not using a specific detergent or what kind of variants they want in terms of. So those are usage and attitude studies. You then have, under that area, market entry studies and feasibility studies, which is quite critical, so that if you have a great idea, CT, you want to start this big thing, it behooves on you to actually, invest some money on research to understand how best to fashion that idea so that you don't fail. So the reason why some businesses or many businesses fail is because they actually don't conduct those market assessment studies, feasibility study. You may think you have a great idea, but the market that you're targeting doesn't think so. Or they think it's okay, but they need for you to actually position it in a certain way that they can use it. So that then would be market assessments, etc. There are also studies called market segmentation. So within your entirety of market or your target market, you would have different people who want to use different types of variances or varieties of your products and services. So you'll find that there are those who are, in the top echelon, and those are people who would perhaps require a service or a product in a specific way, and they don't mind paying a premium price. And then you have mass market, and you have the middle of the range. So segmentation studies help you understand, what the different segments of your market are and what their needs are. Now that can actually work both ways for both, the marketing and consumer side, but also for, even for governments and public policy. Right? Then we have loyalty studies or customer satisfaction studies. So they work best within the service sector. So you're a hospital, you're a bank, you are anybody providing a service, transport, airline, etc. You want to understand just how satisfied people are with the services, from your ambience to your food to the people that are working there, etc., etc. So we then conduct those studies, and the end goal really is to ensure that you have a loyal customer. So what then are those things that you need to do? What are the indicators that ensure that you have a loyal customer? So we gauge things like trust and the likelihood to recommend, because you will never recommend anything that you don't like. I won't recommend people to listen to Spice if I myself don't find Spice a credible station. And so those then would be part of the bouquet. Of course, then there are the media research, so audience studies. The fact of the matter is, you could be doing a great job here, but if there's no audience for it, it then means that you will not be able to survive, because you need advertisers. The only thing that an advertiser is looking at is reach. So how many people are viewing Spice FM today, or whatever it is that is there, that is within the media landscape. So those are studies that we do as well. Then we have the social research side. Now, public opinion polling falls within that spectrum. Because there we look at public policy and we then support public policy. So public policy can be on health. So, for instance, many years ago, and I like this study, CT and I come from, I think, the same part of the world. We did a study, a knowledge, attitude, and perception study for a campaign that was meant to help with, acceptance of male circumcision. Now, the communities, Nilotic communities, for instance, do not practice male circumcision. So the research problem then was, what is it that you need to do to ensure that those communities accept this and do not look at it as something that is going against their culture? So then the research then, found out that indeed for that campaign to work, and that is behavior change campaign, and I'll tell you why that's critical even today in a moment, then you need to actually look at the angles that will be receptive to that audience. In this case, it does not take away from your manhood or manliness if you actually do this. And you educate the recipient on why am I allowed to say this? The receptor, which is, the sheath, is actually problematic and can actually ensure or can enhance your susceptibility to getting HIV. Now, if you use that angle with a community that is predominantly virile, then you are not taking away from them the fact that they can still enjoy the activities that they partake in, and you're not saying that their culture is inferior or is wrong,
primitive
or awkward. You leave the cultural aspect out of it, and that campaign was very, very successful. I say this because today, for instance, we do have policies that the public are yet to accept, SHIF, SHA, etc. Because you need to undertake this knowledge, attitude, and perception.
You have
long
to start
before.
from that point.
That's a starting point.
Right.
Because then you fail. It may be a really good idea, because universal healthcare is a bloody good idea.
Yes.
But you need to understand what the end user, the demand side, actually want to see from universal healthcare, for universal healthcare to work for us. If you don't and you shove it down my throat, even if it is the best, solution, I will walk away from it. And that's why CAP studies, as they're called, UN agencies, international agencies invest a lot of money on these things. Another example, which I remember, is long-lasting insect-treated nets, mosquito nets. Mosquitoes or malaria is still number one killer. But for a long time, many communities in this part of the world just rejected those nets. The question was why? why won't you use this thing and some of them were being given free
Yep.
by government, but people wouldn't use them.
Why?
Because from a cultural perspective, again, you need to understand what the cultures of the people you want to change their behavior is. When you put a net over me, it is concomitant with death, coughing, it's suffocating. And so people would then use these things for anything else. In some communities, they were used for fishing, right?
Not very useful, though.
Yeah,
But they were used.
yeah, not useful, but then because you're not using it for the purpose that it was designed. And so research in terms of knowledge, attitude, and practice and perception helps you understand then what it is you need to communicate and how then that can be accepted. And so, now long-lasting insect treated nests are actually quite utilized in something that people don't even think about. But this is because research assisted in that particular area. The housing that we have now for the police, that was our research. We did that, just after 2007 election when the, what was that one called? Grand Coalition?
They always grand. And they always a
now it's
coalition.
broad-based. That one.
That was a grand coalition.
Yes. Yeah. But one of the good things with that coalition and the reports that came out of, when you have problems, the question always is, how did we get here? What do we need to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes then you say problems are not such a bad thing because they get you to elevate yourself, is that the governance, justice, and law and order institutions needed to be enhanced. And we were then asked or commissioned to conduct surveys. So the remote courts that we now see, where you can actually sit in your house and be in court, that was as a function of the survey we did. That was one of our recommendations.
Right.
To actually decongest the judicial system, because the demand side, which is us, were really getting disgruntled, that you would have your court case sitting for almost 5 years. Nothing is happening. And it was of no fault of the judicial system because they were overworked as well. The courts themselves as physical, entities could not accommodate this demand that we had. So those are, and then for the police, one of the recommendations we made, because we had to do an audit, was you can't expect a custodian of law and order to be a provider of that same law and order when the very basic needs that Maslow talks about, food, clothing, and shelter, are not dealt with.
Okay.
And so the housing was so deplorable that one of our recommendations is give them dignity. If you don't give the police dignity, don't expect police reforms to work. Right?
Angela, this is all information. And when we look at governments, when we look at businesses, when we look at nations, there are decisions that are being made. And usually they say, you don't make a decision that would be implemented towards the lives of people if you don't have the requisite information. So this is information. It is knowledge. It's understanding of what's going on. And I have to ask you on a broader level now, because here it is an entrepreneur and it's doing business. But it's critical, vital stuff that could actually be used by governments that could change some of the things that you're talking about. Police housing, affordable housing, healthcare, communities. Do you think, and it's just now, do you think that this knowledge and information is used adequately? And let's talk about Africa. Used adequately to make decisions that would aid in governance. Is it used enough?
It can. Certainly the ones that I've talked about were actually government initiated research. Products, also requests. Now, for us, our mandate is to provide you with insights. And tell you this is what you need to do. Now, whether you do it or not, there's only so much we can do. But I can tell you that governments across the globe do have a lot of information. Perhaps if they had a lot more insight derivation of those reports that are produced, we would perhaps see, improvements in our livelihoods. But it needs for that particular area that is research not to be perceived as auxiliary, so that anybody who's sitting somewhere has someone who's saying, what's the data saying?
Right.
What the data saying means what are the people who elected me saying. Yeah. Because when we conduct research, and this is important for politicians especially to understand, when we come in and we say you are rated XYZ by your constituents, it's not Angela's data.
No.
I don't
This
belong to
Angela
that
Ambitho.
Yeah. It is your constituent telling you, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Or I'm really very happy
Yeah.
with what you are doing. But it should be the same for government. That at every point in time, any policy you want to implement has to be backed up with insight.
But you would want to. I mean, and I'm saying this, I'm proclaiming this. You actually would. I'm prescribing, actually. You would want to have that information in order for you to be able to deal properly, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Have you ever conducted any research that looks into how it is the populace view the elected leaders, and vice versa, how the elected leaders view the populace who vote for them?
We've done the demand side.
Not supply.
We've not so much done supply side in terms of key informant interviews, and perhaps maybe we have, because we work with governance institutions. So all these NGOs in the governance space are our partners or clients. And some of this information is not information that you'd probably see. But yes, we do conduct key informant interviews with the political class in almost every realm that anything is conducted, whether it be, how people perceive public, trust in public institutions. So yes, to answer your question, CT, is that yes, it is done. Let me tell you how it is done. So for instance, from the supply side, I'll give you a hypothetical example. We can perhaps say we want to understand, for instance, trust in specific ABC public institutions. So the judiciary, the courts, the police, etc. And you can then have indicators that you would be looking at to understand what it is, that people feel about those particular institutions. On the other side, you could also ask the same questions of the supply guy. So you say, what do people think, or what do you feel yourself about how you supply, services to the general public? And then you triangulate or you mirror that information. And when you mirror that information, in some cases there's a mismatch, because indeed the people providing the services think they're doing an excellent job. But in many cases you find, especially with the middle tier and lower tier staff, or technocrats, they know. So provided you tell them, and this is one of the tenets of research, that research must provide the respondent with anonymity. So if we were talking about Standard Group today, and we were doing a survey to understand your satisfaction with how things are running here, we can't go back to the board and say CT said he's not happy about the furniture, the salary, etc. We would just say these are the issues, no matter how much they would ask. This is one of the things that is very clear in the contract.
How then do you verify this information? Let me ask the question differently.
Yeah.
In addition to the key informant interviews,
Right.
what other tools do you use?
So when we are conducting surveys that are perhaps of the nature that you're talking about, one of the things that we do is we have a validation. So there are processes. The first process in research is the inception. And in the inception, you're talking to the stakeholder who has the problem. So that would be the customer, whoever it is. It could be government, it could be an NGO, etc. And the research problem then is discussed in detail. This is discussed so that you can come up with the research objectives. right? So you would then design your research objectives and the methodology that would be suitable to answer to those objectives. You then go and collect the data from the various stakeholders, yeah? And the stakeholders could be both internal, as you had mentioned, and external. You then provide your report and insights, and at that point, you have a validation workshop, right? So in the validation, you're bringing all these groups of people together. Sometimes you don't bring them together in one room. So perhaps if one stakeholder group was general public, you have general public validating the report on their own. They will see everything, but they'll validate it on their own. And they'll say, actually, that's true. That is really what we meant. And sometimes there's congruence. Sometimes there will be people who think, no, that's not what I felt. And you would actually look at those outliers as well.
Quickly where I'm going with this, because sometimes information which is intended to bring about change, yes, does bring about change, but not the change that was intended. Because since it's information, since it's data, it's like someone telling you these are the landmines, this is where they're situated. So you then now have an opportunity to provide yourself with the ways and means of avoiding the mine.
Exactly.
Yes, so whereas the understanding would have been it would help with the implementation of something that would bring about positive change.
Yeah.
It may achieve the complete opposite.
It should not, if the insights and recommendations are succinct, but the onus is always on the client.
Yes.
So if CT decides, I still want to go ahead with this thing as I determined in the first place, but research has told me there are line mines here and there, at least you're going in with your eyes wide open, not wide shut.
There are those who are of this opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think I completely agree with them, but it's the opinion. And the opinion is that when you talk about research questions, there are those who say you can fashion research questions in a manner that more or less predetermines the outcome.
Yes.
What say you?
As I say yes, because questionnaire design is a very fundamental aspect. And a good question should be a question that is not leading. So it has to be objective. It has to be one that does not presuppose and therefore provides the respondent with the opportunity to give you an honest view. So, for instance, if I said CT is wearing
Just call it what you like.
an ogudu.
Let me
I don't know whether that's a muffin. So, he's wearing that.
Ogudu.
Kofia. Ogudu. Huh? Isn't he?
Bas.
It's a leading question.
Yes.
Weren't he?
So the question you should be asking is, what is CT wearing?
Okay.
And if you wanted to even, you say, what is CT wearing on his head? Now, some people would say it is a hat. Some other people would say it is a stocking. Some people would say it is a crown, muffin. But then that would give you an indication of what people view that particular garment as.
But
Right?
you were clear in your questioning.
You're clear in your questioning, and that is very important.
So that's their perception.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
If a majority of the people call it a hat and it's an ogudu, so we just change the name.
Sometimes the questioning, not even the questioning, so you get the answers, and I know we're running out of time, but you get the answers from the question.
Yeah.
But the results of that questioning sometimes gets people in their feelings.
Yes.
Especially if you're asking questions about particular individuals.
Right.
Can you do anything about that, or do we just have to deal with the results?
Be a little bit more clear and do. Just tell me, ask me.
People attacked you.
Yeah.
People attacked you and said, this Angela Ambitho, what does she think she's doing?
Yeah.
But what you did is that you presented data.
Yeah.
Can you do anything about the data as it has come?
No.
You didn't cook it. People answered you.
We don't touch data.
There you go. So what do you do when now people attack you regularly?
Well, what we have. Let me tell you why we. First of all, let me start by answering the question: why do we do polling? I made a very conscious decision in 2007 that we would do polling for the specific reason that if you want to create strong hegemony, so if you want to be a country that is strong, you have to do things that empower the public. because information is power. That's our mantra. And so the public needs to actually, or from their perspective, be able to give feedback to the, instruments of power and the people in position of power on what it is they feel about anything at all, including whether I was happy with voting or, voting for you. If I'm not happy, I should tell you so that you have time within the 5-year window to change that. Then we have a public that is powerful and it is critical. That is why we do it. And so when people come out and say to the mirror, because the mirror has said to you,
you're the ugliest of them all.
Mirror on the wall. You are not the fairest today. Even if you crack the mirror, you're not going to be fairer. And this is how we have trained our people. That is the mantra of research. You tell the client what it is as it is meant to be. You don't embellish it. You basically provide them with insights, because if you embellish information, you're lying to that person. It is not my business to make MPs happy or governors happy. It is my business, if I'm doing public opinion polling, to ensure that the public's view is understood by those who, in their selves and their beings, should embrace that is which is servant leadership.
Wapende wasipende, you'll tell them the truth. Okay. Angela Ambitho, thank you very much for joining us today. And once again, congratulations on this 20-year milestone. It's a big one. Someone has said, yes, 20 years is something that is big and it should be celebrated. 20 years of Infotrak research and consulting. Angela Ambitho founded it 20 years ago. She's still the CEO. She's still running it, going strong, doing a lot of research in the markets and on very many things.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.